Hi everyone, welcome to Mastering English Tenses, a podcast where we help you learn and understand all 12 English tenses. I'm Sophia.
And I'm James. We're here to make learning English fun and easy. Whether you're at an elementary or intermediate level, this podcast is for you.
First, we'll start with the basics. We'll cover the present tenses and help you understand how to use them correctly. So grab a notebook and let's dive in. Let's start with the present simple tense. We use the present simple to talk about things that happen regularly or facts that are always true.
Exactly, Sophia. For example, I eat breakfast every day, or the sun rises in the east.
Notice how the verb stays the same in the present simple tense. But when we talk about he, she, or it, we usually add an s to the verb. Like, he eats breakfast every day, or she likes to read.
That's right. The present simple tense is really useful for talking about habits and routines. If you want to talk about something you do regularly, this is the tense to use.
Another example could be, they go to school every morning. Here, go stays the same because they is a plural subject.
And for negatives, we use do not or does not before the verb. For instance, I do not like coffee, or she does not play football.
Yes, and questions are formed by placing do or does before the subject. Like, do you like pizza? Or does he play the guitar?
Now, let's move on to the present continuous tense. This tense is used to talk about actions that are happening right now or around this moment.
A good example would be, I'm eating dinner, or she is studying for her exams.
This tense is perfect for describing what's going on at the moment of speaking. For example, we are recording a podcast or they are playing soccer in the park.
And if you want to make it negative, just add not. For example, I am not watching TV, or he is not sleeping.
Questions in the present continuous are easy too. Just put am, is, are before the subject. Like, are you listening or is she coming to the party?
Now let's talk about the present perfect tense. This tense is used to talk about actions that happened at an unspecified time in the past and are relevant to the present. For example, I have finished my homework, or she has visited Paris.
It's also used for actions that started in the past and continue up to now. For example, they have lived here for 5 years, or I have known her since 2010.
In the present perfect, we use have or has, followed by the past participle of the verb. For negatives, we add not after have or has. For instance, I have not haven't seen that movie, or he has not hasn't finished his meal.
To form questions, we place have or has before the subject. Like, have you ever been to Japan, or has she completed the assignment?
Finally, there's the present perfect continuous tense. This tense describes actions that started in the past and are still continuing or were recently finished. For example, I have been studying for 3 hours, or she has been working here since morning.
It emphasizes the duration of the action. For instance, they have been playing football for 2 hours, or we have been waiting for you.
In the present perfect continuous, we use have been or has been followed by the ing form of the verb. For negatives, we add not after have or has. For example, I have not haven't been feeling well, or he has not hasn't been working hard. To form questions, we place have or has before the subject. For instance, have you been exercising, or has she been reading that book?
Understanding these present tenses allows you to talk about actions and states that are happening now, regularly occur, or have relevance to the present. It's a crucial part of being able to communicate effectively in English.
To practice, try describing your daily routines, current activities, and experiences. Use the present simple for habits and facts, the present continuous for ongoing actions, and the present perfect and present perfect continuous for actions with relevance to the present.
Listening to conversations, watching shows, and reading articles that use these tenses can also help you get a better sense of how they are used naturally.
Great job, James. Now let's talk a bit about why mastering these tenses is important. Knowing the present simple and present continuous tenses can help you talk about everyday activities and what's happening around you. It's a great way to start conversations and share information.
Absolutely. When you understand these tenses, you can describe your routines, hobbies, and even your current actions. This makes your English more fluent and natural.
To master these tenses, practice is key. Try to use them in your daily conversations. Talk about your day, describe what you're doing, and ask others about their activities.
Also, listen to English speakers and pay attention to how they use these tenses. The more you hear and use them, the more comfortable you'll become.
And don't forget to practice writing as well. Write about your daily routine or describe what you're doing right now. This helps reinforce what you've learned.
Remember, mastering these tenses is just the beginning. Once you get a good grasp of the present tenses, you'll find it easier to learn and use the other tenses.
We'll dive into the past tenses, but for now, take some time to practice what we've covered.
That's right. Keep practicing and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every mistake is a step towards improvement. And now we're going to dive into the past tenses. So grab your notebook and let's get started.
That's right, James. Understanding past tenses is crucial for talking about things that happened before now. We'll start with the past simple tense.
The past simple tense is used to talk about actions that happened and were completed at a specific time in the past. For example, I visited my grandmother last weekend, or she watched a movie yesterday.
Notice how we use the past form of the verb. For regular verbs, we add ed to the base form, like visit becomes visited, and watch becomes watched.
However, many common verbs are irregular and have unique past forms, like go becomes went, see becomes saw, and eat becomes ate. There's no shortcut here, you just have to memorize them.
For negatives, we use did not or didn't before the base form of the verb. For example, I did not go to the party, or she didn't eat breakfast.
And to form questions, we use did before the subject and the base form of the verb. Like, did you see the new movie, or did they finish their homework?
Exactly. Let's move on to the past continuous tense. This tense is used to describe actions that were in progress at a specific time in the past. For example, I was reading a book at 8 p.m., or they were playing soccer when it started to rain.
In the past continuous, we use was or were with the ing form of the verb. Was is used with I, he, she, and it, while were is used with you, we, and they.
This tense is helpful for setting the scene or providing background information in a story. For example, while I was walking to the store, I saw a beautiful sunset.
For negatives, we add not after was or were. For instance, I was not sleeping when you called, or they were not listening to the teacher.
And for questions, we place was or were before the subject. Like, were you watching TV at 9 p.m., or was she studying for her exam?
Now let's talk about the past perfect tense. This tense is used to show that an action was completed before another action or time in the past. For example, I had finished my homework before dinner, or she had already left when I arrived.
In the past perfect tense, we use had followed by the past participle of the verb. This tense helps us understand the sequence of past events. For example, by the time we got to the theater, the movie had already started.
For negatives, we add not after had. Like, I had not seen that movie before, or they had not finished their project on time.
And for questions, we place had before the subject. For instance, had you ever visited Paris before last year? Or had they eaten breakfast before the meeting?
The past perfect continuous tense is our next stop. This tense describes actions that were ongoing up until another point in the past. For example, I had been studying for 2 hours when she called, or they had been living in London for 5 years before moving to New York.
In the past perfect continuous, we use had been followed by the ing form of the verb. This tense emphasizes the duration of an action. For example, she had been working at the company for a decade before she retired.
For negatives, we add not after had. like I had not been feeling well or they had not been practicing enough.
And for questions, we place had before the subject. For example, had you been waiting long? Or had they been planning the trip for a long time?
Understanding and mastering these past tenses can greatly improve your ability to tell stories and share experiences in English. When you can talk about what happened in the past clearly, your conversations become richer and more engaging.
To practice these tenses, try writing about past experiences, like a memorable vacation or an important event in your life. Pay attention to the sequence of events and use the appropriate past tense to describe them.
Also, listening to English stories, watching movies, and paying attention to how past events are described can help you get a better sense of how these tenses are used naturally.
Don't be afraid to practice speaking as well. Share your stories with friends, language partners, or even record yourself. The more you use these tenses, the more confident you'll become.
And remember, making mistakes is part of the learning process. Every mistake helps you understand the language better.
We'll explore the future tenses, but for now, take some time to practice what we've covered until now.
We explored the present and past tenses, and now we're going to delve into the future tenses. So get comfortable and let's get started.
Understanding future tenses is essential for discussing plans, predictions, and intentions. We'll start with the future simple tense.
The future simple tense is used to talk about actions that will happen at a later time. It's often formed using will followed by the base form of the verb. For example, I will go to the store tomorrow, or she will start a new job next week.
Exactly, James. This tense is very versatile. We use it for promises, offers, and decisions made at the moment of speaking. For instance, I will help you with your homework, or we will visit the museum this weekend.
To make negative sentences, we add not after will. For example, I will not won't attend the meeting, or he will not won't eat dinner tonight.
And to ask questions, we place will before the subject. Like, will you come to the party? Or will they finish the project on time?
Next, let's talk about the future continuous tense. This tense is used to describe actions that will be happening at a specific time in the future. For example, I will be studying at 8 p.m. or they will be traveling to Paris next month.
In the future continuous, we use will be followed by the ing form of the verb. This tense emphasizes the duration of an action at a future moment. For example, she will be working late tonight, or we will be having dinner at 7 p.m.
For negative sentences, we add not after will. Like, I will not won't be sleeping early, or they will not won't be attending the event.
And to form questions, we place will before the subject. For instance, will you be studying at 9 p.m., or will they be coming to the party?
Now, let's move on to the future perfect tense. This tense is used to talk about actions that will be completed before a specific time in the future. For example, I will have finished my homework by 6 p.m., or she will have left by the time you arrive.
In the future perfect, we use will have followed by the past participle of the verb. This tense is useful for showing the completion of an action. For instance, we will have completed the project by next week, or they will have traveled to 5 countries by the end of the year.
For negatives, we add not after will. Like, I will not won't have finished the book by tomorrow, or she will not won't have arrived before noon.
And to ask questions, we place will before the subject. For example, will you have completed the assignment by Monday? Or will they have left by the time we get there?
Finally, let's discuss the future perfect continuous tense. This tense describes actions that will have been ongoing up until a specific time in the future. For example, I will have been studying for 3 hours by 8 p.m., or they will have been living in this city for 10 years next month.
In the future perfect continuous, we use will have been followed by the ing form of the verb. This tense emphasizes the duration of an action up to a certain point in the future. For instance, she will have been working here for 5 years by the end of this month, or we will have been waiting for 2 hours by the time the train arrives.
For negative sentences, we add not after will. Like, I will not won't have been working here long enough to qualify for a raise, or they will not won't have been practicing enough to win the competition.
And to form questions, we place will before the subject. For instance, will you have been studying long enough to pass the exam? Or will they have been traveling for a year by next summer?
Mastering these future tenses allows you to talk confidently about your plans, predictions, and expectations. It helps you communicate more precisely about what you intend to do or what you foresee happening.
To practice, start by making plans for the future. Write down what you will do tomorrow, next week, or even next year. Use the future simple for straightforward plans, the future continuous for ongoing actions, the future perfect for completed actions, and the future perfect continuous for ongoing actions up to a future point.
Also, listen to conversations, watch movies, and read articles that involve future plans and predictions. Pay attention to how these tenses are used in different contexts.
Don't hesitate to practice speaking. Share your future plans with friends, family, or language partners. The more you use these tenses, the more natural they will feel.
And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Every error is an opportunity to learn and improve.
Before we wrap up, let's quickly review all the tenses we've covered in this podcast. We started with the present tenses, present simple and present continuous. Then we moved on to the past tenses, past simple, past continuous, past perfect, and past perfect continuous. Today, we completed our journey with the future tenses, future simple, future continuous, future perfect, and future perfect continuous.
Understanding and mastering these 12 tenses will significantly enhance your ability to express yourself clearly and accurately in English. It's a powerful tool for effective communication.
Understanding these 12 tenses allows you to talk about actions and events in a precise and nuanced way, covering all time frames, past, present, and future.
To recap, here are the key points to remember for each tense. 1. Present simple. Regular actions and general truths. 2. Present continuous, actions happening right now. 3. Present perfect, actions that happened at an unspecified time in the past and are relevant to the present. For present perfect continuous, actions that started in the past and are still continuing or were recently finished. 5. Past simple, completed actions in the past. 6. Past continuous, ongoing actions in the past. 7. Past perfect, actions completed before another past action. 8. Past perfect continuous, ongoing actions up until another past point. 9. Future simple, actions that will happen in the future. 10. Future continuous, ongoing future actions. 11. Future perfect, actions that will be completed before a future time. 12. Future perfect continuous, ongoing actions up until a future point. We encourage you to practice these tenses in your daily conversations, writing, and while listening to English content. The more you use them, the more natural they will become.
Remember, making mistakes is part of the learning process. Don't be afraid to use these tenses, and with time, you'll see significant improvements in your English skills.
We hope this podcast series has been helpful and enjoyable for you. Keep practicing, stay curious, and keep learning.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through the 12 English tenses. If you have any questions or need further clarification, feel free to reach out to us.
Goodbye for now, and we wish you all the best in your English learning journey.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.